Markets Now is brought to you by Durastack Trait Technology, the latest innovation from Syngenta. Available for the 2027 season, Durastack Technology features 3 powerful modes of action to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch corn rootworms every move.
Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle, work with Brad Kooima of Kooima Kooima Varilek. Well, we ended mixed to higher in the grain trade today, and livestock futures kind of mixed in, cattle higher in the hogs. All right, Brad, let's talk about this cattle market. A lot of contracts making new highs for the move on Tuesday in cattle as we got a push from that over $4 higher cash market on a weighted average. But what, today we ran up into a little chart resistance or what?
I think yes. Yes to the chart resistance. You had some of the months. I'm looking at the April contract. We gapped higher yesterday, got right up against the high that we had made here about 2 weeks ago. And then pulled back. But really the pattern of the day, I didn't feel bad at all about, Michelle. We started out lower early, old saying from an old guy, bull markets start lower every day, and then they can't keep them that way. We've all sat through these bear market deals where the market tries to rally early only to see it erode and erode. And, it's like watching a soccer game with stoppage time. You just wish the market would close before it gets any worse, right? And so I thought all in all, not a bad day. And I think, where you started that comment is really where the market is at. The market will be, futures market has a tendency to be kind of standoffish in the middle of the week. We get to the end of the week, Packer overplays his hand or waits and waits and waits. The feedlot waits even longer and says, no, you don't have enough cattle to pick from. We've got leverage. And, it's 3 weeks in a row of sharply higher on the cash market. And I think we got a real shot at being higher again this week.
All right. So 250 is in the cards, you think?
250, I think, is in the cards. And I think it'll be in the cards north and south. There's been a little bit of nuance already, some 250 here and then some small places in the north. And there was some 249 today on some cattle in Texas. Not a lot, but a few. So I would guess, knowing the Packers, I'm going to guess that what you said earlier off air, that I wonder if they're going to wait until after the cattle on feed report on Friday in the hopes that maybe somehow that report's bearish enough that they can get, don't have to chase. But I think a lot of asking prices around that 250 mark, and I guess I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'll say that I think we're going to get there.
Darn it, you took my question. I was going to ask you if we were going to wait for cash trade until after the cattle on feed report, which is kind of a pattern that we have had in the past. The Packers right now, though, they are scrambling to try to get into cattle numbers because we're at the tightest levels right now, aren't we?
Well, you and I have talked about this regularly. I had felt that somewhere late in the first quarter was when our numbers were going to be the tightest. I mentioned on your program too, I was, a little worried about the break evens, and some of these yearling cattle are very, very high, 250 or more. The irony is not lost on me that you could get 250 and the cattle not make money. How's that for a deal? But the point I'm trying to make is I think now that we've reached these levels, the odds of us staying more current or being more willing sellers are also, I think, improved. A lot of the feed yards have consciously added weight to the cattle to lower their break evens. Okay. And that's very evident. We'll see if we can get through this next period without, hitting any real, potholes in the road. I got to admit that does trouble me a little bit, the average weights, and the consciousness about we got to make them bigger or these things don't work type of comments. So I guess we'll see. The supply, there's no denying. Looking at the show list up in my neck of the woods, they're the shortest it's been basically for this entire bull market cattle cycle. Yes, there's a few yearlings around, but not very many. They were hard to buy as high priced as they were, and there was great competition for them. So, and of course, the South still affected largely by, the border being closed. There's something else about Friday that maybe we should talk about, Michelle, if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about Greeley, Colorado, the beef plant, JBS plant. They're supposed to vote on whether they're going to strike or not, right?
Yes. Well, there's a vote scheduled for Friday, and I guess I'm you, me, and we're all assuming that it's about, well, hopefully one of two things, right? Or hopefully one thing, and that would be that, okay, they've decided to ratify an agreement. Okay. The other, I mean, that's if you're a glass half full person. The the other potential.
Obviously, I'm a glass half empty person, right?
I mean, yeah, me too. On this, at least on this topic, for sure.
Shoot.
I have a hard time not being sarcastic. It doesn't take a great deal of imagination, does it? To think that if you are a packer and you're having this risk of a work stoppage, it'd be one thing if you're making $300 a head on everything you're killing, but the opposite is the case. I mean, cattle are hard to find. You're losing money on all the ones that you're killing. Now, there is a terrible lot of formula cattle that go through there that might impact their thinking a little bit. But it seems like in a way it'd be no better time for a work stoppage than now. So I don't want to imply anything at all, but to me, the risk of at least a temporary work stoppage here, these negotiations have been going on for over 8 months and they haven't reached an agreement yet. So I know I'm watching it to see if there's maybe a little bit of temporary negative news that might hit the market here over the weekend. I hope not. And then we'll pick up the pieces. There's still a tight supply of cattle either way.
Yeah, because the initial knee-jerk reaction will be negative, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a big plant. Sure. It's kill capacity-wise, it's the biggest one in the JBS system, I believe.
5,400, I think you told me?
Yep. Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah, so a big one. All right, cattle on feed, just hash through that real quickly because on feed numbers, or placement numbers, I should say, could be down 4%, but the marketings could also be down, 13%? Those are the average trade guesses right now.
Yeah, that's a homely marketing number, huh? Yikes.
Yeah, it's very homely.
It's
surprising, though. I wouldn't say.
No, I don't think so. Especially when you're talking about less cattle on feed, and then the fact that they're just consciously feed them longer, making them bigger. This is the second report that is a comparison to when the border's been closed. So you're talking 3 or 4% less of a very small number of placements. Just so everybody remembers that. On feed at 98.5 is the guess. Also comparing to a smaller number. We'll see where that marketing number comes out. The guess is, like you said, 87. I don't know that the market, unless there's some major surprise, I don't think the market will spend a lot of time dwelling on the numbers unless they're completely different than the guesses.
Gotcha. And just real quick, technically, if we have higher cash trade, do we fill the gaps? Do you think we do set those October highs in our sights? You and I have talked about this several times, but I'm asking it again.
It's fun to talk about. It's fun to see the market do a little bit what you and I have talked about. Maybe expectations are going to be. I think we make a run at that gap, and then the. Okay, guys, if this was easy, everybody would do it, right? So I find it hard to imagine that the market's going to go right up to that gap that anybody that's ever looked at a chart in their whole life, and then that's going to be the magic number. That would be the first time. It's not that easy.
No.
And so I wonder if we get close and fail, or actually, I feel like maybe the odds are better that if this cash continues to perform like this, that we might just take a run at taking a shot at taking those highs out. And maybe that's a high that maybe you and I will be talking about for a while. So I feel like if this was a football game, I think we're in the fourth quarter. Okay. Toward the end of this bull cycle, because I just worry that either a weight problem or something with a news of the economy, or who knows, whatever. Beef's too high. If that rears its head again with some other attempt to change that, you got a border that could open. I like the market. I'm bullish, but let's be careful up here. It's been a heck of a move.
Yeah, it has, for sure. Okay, hogs up for a second day after a pretty good correction. And is this just short covering activity? Because the cash market is actually holding together pretty well here for this time of year.
Yeah, and the funds really haven't budged.
Not really.
I thought maybe we'd see a big drop in the open interest here on this break.
Yeah, they're still really long, aren't they?
I know. I guess that's going to cut two ways. So tomorrow's the third day up. And I know that's an oversimplistic way to look at it, but sometimes I overthink it. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about the hogs tomorrow. If we can sustain a third day up against this downtrend that we just started here, then maybe I'll feel differently. Right now, I'm more inclined to sell rallies because I think that global demand has been not great. Domestic demand's good, but a lot of hogs coming at us here, and I think we've ran that disease story about as far as we can go. So let's see what happens here tomorrow. If I had to guess it, I'd say open higher and fail, but we'll see.
And corn and soybean futures ending on both sides of steady here, giving up early gains despite a pretty good up day in bean oil and the wheat market. So why did we fail? Did we run up into chart resistance?
We tried the new highs of the move on the beans and then slowed down. I think that the bean trade, where the leadership here is that whole grouping, we need to see some concrete proof that China is going to do what they claim they're going to do, or what President Trump claims that they're going to do. So we need that. Corn held against what's emerging to be in a little bit of an uptrend line. We need to get thinking about tomorrow on the grains. We need to be thinking about how much, hopefully less corn acres we plant, maybe some weather risk. Maybe we'll talk about this drought monitor showing how dry it is in the eastern corn belt, blah, blah, blah. In other words, we need to put this big crop, big acres problem that the corn has here for the last several weeks since that report and a half ago, right? And start thinking about the what ifs. Then I think we could get off of these lows. Otherwise, we're going to struggle.
Some of this soybean rally has also been because of the rally in bean oil, which made more new contract highs here today. The idea is that we might get these RVO proposals out soon and that they're going to be favorable. Are we getting are we getting over our skis here though, you think, or not?
It's great that you brought that up. I'd forgotten to mention that. I think you're spot on. Yes, there's quite a bit of dialogue in Washington about that. One would think that, the administration and others there would be quite happy to throw a bone at the farmers here. So a lot of that rally is already built on hope and expectation. Let's hope it comes through as well as it does. It seems like often the bark is worse than the bite on that thing, So let's hope that doesn't let us down. I'm a little worried, like you said, that we're a little bit over our skis here and have already built in more than what's real.
All right. Thanks so much. That is Brad Kooima with Kooima Kooima Varilek in Markets Now.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack trait technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force, outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.